Hey everybody. So I come in the name of the Lord, the King of my heart, the Lord of my life, and the lover of my soul. All praise be to Jesus Christ. All glory to Abba Father. So today, what I wanted to talk about is nothing to do with religion or Bible. I'm just talking person to person, sinner to sinner, human to human. And what I wanted to focus our attention on was the unprecedented types of natural disasters that are going on throughout the world and seem to be escalating in an exponential, unprecedented rate as we go on towards the middle of the year. And in that patterning, who knows what the end of the year is going to bring about. And so what I wanted to first discuss was about when a situation like that does happen, your emotional state, about how your attitude will help you to understand something that is going to be a life-shattering event, something that is very devastating, that in the comforts that we have lived in will awaken you right quick, in the blink of an eye, what we've truly taken for granted. Like, for example, toilet paper. We take that for granted, don't we? And even in the sense that we don't have any. If you go to the bathroom and it's empty, you know that you can call somebody, or like you'll get it fixed right quick. But even what if there's no toilet paper? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, we've never really lived like that. And so just like small things like that you take for granted, water faucets, hot water from the bathroom, being able to even pee inside of a toilet you can flush, lights at night, of course the technological age as well. And so that's what I wanted to kind of focus on. And then what I wanted to go on after that is focusing on the true wealth of who you are as a person, the true treasure stores that is in the heaven of who you are, that may have been forgotten, or it's been a long time since you reflected on that, to make sure that those are still there, the true wealth, not the riches, but the true wealth of yourself. And those are the virtues, your attitudes, the way that you handle a situation, when something happens, and your reaction to it. Situations don't make a person, they reveal them. And so what I wanted to suggest with that was getting back in touch with your own emotions and understanding that. And so the first part is about the unprecedented disasters that have been happening. And if you guys don't know, there's been intense flooding up north by Maine, Maryland area. There's been huge tornadoes happening, of course, in the Midwest, but like disastrous. They have one where cows are flying through the air, hailstones that are the size of golf balls, softballs, and like they seem to like golf ball, softball, or like tennis ball, then softball. Do you notice a pattern here? What if something so big happens that, what if, there's hail the size of tires falling off? That's what I mean by unprecedented. Like, things have been way more dramatic than we could have kind of imagined, and new things are coming too, like lightning storms, unprecedented lightning storms up in Europe. And the way that a regular lightning storm may come once in a while, maybe have 1,000 strikes. I don't know what the average is, but now they're saying this has been happening constantly, and there's like 40,000 strikes, and it's been crazy, right? And as you know, like, there's just been natural things that have been happening, and it seems like the earth could be reforming. Maybe it wasn't done being created, and the volcano, who knows? But this thing is, it seems that there's a lot of people that they are in the now, in the present. Their lives have completely changed from what it was yesterday. 12 hours just totally devastated the last 10 years of what you had worked hard on. And there's a sense of complete devastating loss and life-shattering consequences. There is misery, and it's worse than misery. It's terrible. It's losing hope. It's on that brink. Hope is the last thing that keeps you. And if you lose hope, then you have nothing. You can't have courage without hope. You can have faith without hope. Hope is it might not be the strongest type of attitude. It might be not the strongest type of spirit or virtue, but it is the last balustrade from complete annihilation of yourself, even by your own hand sometimes, yeah? And you lose all strength. You give up. Boom. You give up, you go down. You don't want to go. You have hit not depression, you're completely deflated, yeah? And so, when things like that happened, if you have not prepared yourself in your emotional attitudes and learning how to register such a disaster in a way that you can digest more or take more, then that disaster outside of you could defeat you. And so, with that being said, what I wanted to go on that is, when Hurricane Harvey happened to me, I lost everything. And not only that, because of the spiritual quest, my spiritual conquest that I had started that year, Hurricane Harvey started towards the fall, started that year, I had completely separated myself from society. So no Facebook, no phone, no nothing like that. So I lost a lot of connections. And in that sense, I was completely by myself during the disaster. And of course, the Lord God had me. And in that sense, it was because of what I had worked on in the beginning of the year with my spiritual quest, and because I had completely lost touch with all of my social bridges, there was a change in me where, since there was no detailing, I really got in touch with myself, and because of that, I got to control I got to learn about my feelings and emotions, attitudes, and putting myself in situations where I'm alone for the first time in a long time, because everyone can always be with people now, but you're alone, and instead of feeling lonely, you can be alone and not feel lonely. Yeah, you can feel alone and feel gratified, and that right there was a very strong virtualization of my attitude that helped when the hurricane happened and all my stuff was gone. I had no money. I only had a little bit of money, I had, thank God, some friends up the street, but they were in the same neighborhood, so their house was gone. But because of that, I was able to adjust a lot quicker and get through it on my own and help other people around, right? I was able to be a beacon of strength for people who didn't have the practice on how to do that. And because of that, they could be true to their truth of feeling devastating and lost, but I could be a beacon of uplifting and help, even though I was in the same situation as them, and still take care of myself and take care of other people. And right there is being selfless, but it's also strengthening in entirety, right? You're not thinking of yourself less because you're helping someone in a situation, but you're thinking less of you're not thinking less of yourself, you're thinking of yourself less, and in that sense, you are expanding and encouraging, adding heart to someone whose heart just got devastated and shattered, even though yours should be devastated and shattered, but you have already that fortitude inside of you with the wealth, not the riches, but the wealth, the true power of who you are and what you are capable of. And so in that sense, getting in touch with your attitude when something that is unprecedented happen. We are good at working through our lives as they are now in the worldly sense, the community sense, the rules, the protocols, and the regulations, the very ethos, the zeitgeist, and the laws that help to maintain a civilized where you live, right? And that keeps everything at a level of comfort. And comfortability is a nice feeling, but it could be a really devastating enemy if you don't become aware of it. If something doesn't jog you out of it, you can turn into a cognitive dissonance. And that's where you get people who have volcanoes in their backyard and they're still thinking like a hurricane type of disaster or something that will happen, devastate, and pass. Unprecedented, yeah? Like you never had a volcano in the backyard. it's not going to stop. What makes you think that you're going to be able to stop something that is of nature so powerful? It's such a titan. Um, it's kind of, if you think about it that way, futile. Yeah, so like leave your material possessions, but it's hard to let go of things that are outside of you, that you have not only sentimentality, and it worked. It makes you it reminds you of what you have built for yourself, but it also the attachment there keeps you away from your true wealth, because it's nothing outside of you that has made you. It is your attitudes towards wanting to get there, right? And in that sense, that is what you want to focus on now, while you're in the comfort of being able to do that. Yeah? Not when the disaster has come and then now you have to dig deeper when you have a life-shattering type of situation where, oh, just yesterday you were living in your comfort and feeling on top of the world, and in 24 hours, nothing, third world country, nothing. Yeah? And so how to jeopardize that. And the one thing I know that helped me go through my situation with Hurricane Harvey was, one, facing the truth about my emotions, right? But doing that in private. There's some people who want to, and those people who want to cry and yell and scream and just like feel sorrow, feel it, and you can feel it outside and like have people see you. That is what you want to feel. But me, knowing that I already was prepared for something like this where everyone else was not, it would have been unwise of me to have them see that type of level in my real sense, like in the truth of how I really felt about losing stuff. I would go off on my own and sob like and feel my pity. I felt pity for me. I felt sorrow. I felt loss. I felt devastation. I felt, what am I going to do? I felt confusion, life-shattering event. The carpet got swept up from under you. You're falling down. No one's there to help you up. Are you on your back? Are you on your front? Are you on your head? Are you on your feet? Like, you don't even know. You're completely confused. I did all of that, emoting in my truth in private. And then so when I faced the world, it wasn't me hiding from them not showing my true emotion. I was in touch with my true emotion, but I got it out over there because there's enough of that over here. And I want to bring something new, something stronger, something that can completely empathize with them. You know you can, and truth, but at the same time they see you as someone who is stronger, and so that's what the first part is, like being truth and honest to yourself. If you're like, going secret, if you want to try and be a leader or someone as a beacon of hope for people, but if you don't want to, then do it right there. Let them see you. You can still be the beacon of hope, but it might take a little bit longer for them to trust you, seeing that you are as weak. Or maybe that's just me because I look really ugly when I cry, but at the same time, so one is getting in touch with that emotion and knowing that it's okay to feel the truth about that. You want to go into something so devastating in truth. You don't want to try to fight your emotions or make an affirmation that it sounds hollow, like, oh yes, I will get past this. Oh, you used to be able to use those affirmations, but it wasn't a life-shattering devastation. It was just a little bit of an obstacle. When you have something that just devastates everything, that's not an obstacle. That's a disaster. That's chaos. That's nothing. That's nothing. And if you had worked so hard to get there, you feel like, a waste. Like, what did all that time? And it's a hard thing to conceptualize, right? And it's so funny because when I was reading the comments on some of the videos that was showing these disasters and the people's reaction who's living through these disasters right now, who's having this experience, a lot of the comments were right, but they're not worthy. They weren't worthy. It's not the time for that, right? And so like one type of comment was like, well, at least you're alive, right? Yeah, of course, at least they're alive, but right now they want to feel like they're dead. Like they don't want to feel alive because those emotions are a lot. So that's not the time to say that, and it's kind of haughty, it's kind of arrogant for you to just say like, well, count your blessings, This is devastation, not just a obstacle that you can just, I didn't pay my electricity bill, I can turn it back on. It's nobody has electricity like that, you know. And then two, the second one that I noticed was more on a religious connotation. This to do with virtue itself. It's too early for this type of virtue where it's store up for yourselves treasures. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, right? So it's like, oh, material possessions and have no attachments to the world. And so you should already know that. That is not the time to say that, you know. Right now, it's too devastating. And so people are emoting wrong, like they're wanting them to get over it when it just happened. And getting over something without really feeling yourself, you're going to miss out the correct reason why this had to happen. Because in a lot of senses, when something like a disaster happens and your life shatters, one of the things you want to try to look at is, why is this happening to me, right? That was what I would ask. I had my pity party, you know? Why is this happening to me? Like, I thought I was doing everything right. But in that sense, if someone's telling you to move on, you haven't stopped to question and really look at it, instead of looking at it and seeing it as a exclamation of being pathetic with yourself, in an empathetic way, but it's hollow, kind of, right? It's more like a redundancy, like, you know what I mean? And so, in that sense, that first step of being truth and honest to how you feel, a sense of sorrow, loss, sadness, devastation, and grief, feel it to the heart and the core in truth. Don't neglect yourself. Don't reprimand yourself. Say it in truth, not hate. Say it in truth, not rage. Say it in truth, you know, not what's that called? Disgust of it's, you know, something happened. And in that sense, what you will be able to do is start beginning to put together the reasons why something like this happened. And that is the mystery of it. That's you now having to pretty much psych yourself out in order for you to give it a reason. And when you start with a reason, you will have a reason to go on. You'll have a reason to heal faster. You'll have a reason to put yourself together faster. And if you can do that now with everything comfortable outside yourself, when something like this happens, you'll be a strength, a beacon, a leader, someone who is in truth, honesty, up to the empathy of what everything is happening, but at the same time, you will have the correct words of how you can communicate it to somebody who doesn't want to listen to anything because it's too raw, right? And so that was the other one about that. The virtuous side, it's too soon to tell someone, well, you know, you had an attachment to a worldly possession, and you should know that you have to leave everything behind, you know? It's too much. And then the other one was, this is a punishment for you, God is punishing you, all that stuff. No, he's not. God, what you see and what these people who are like, punishment, 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 karma, 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 it's not such as that. With God, this is not a judgment. This is a delay. It's not a denial. It is, he knows the perfect step to do, no matter if you cannot understand it outside of yourself, that will keep you in a perseverance of humility. I know it's hard to even understand why that has to happen. That's why it's not wise to ask questions like, why can't today be like the good old days? It's a question that is not wise. Like, you can't change anything. All you have to do is try to understand it and know that you have an opportunity to grow as a person. I know it's hard at the moment, but that's what people have been saying, and it's kind of shameful on them, I feel, for them to condemn people who are already completely down and kick them while they're down And it's easy to say all those three things, easy to say, but it's not happening to you, no matter how much you can imagine it happening to you. Until it happens to you, you don't know, you know? And so it's like, none of those things can happen because you're not putting yourself in that first step of being truth and honest to something that is completely your new reality. In the blink of an eye, everything went on its head. It is a feeling that is devastating, and I've had many times that I had to start over in my life, you know. So I have a great experience about letting go and moving on, and the more that I had to do that, the quicker I saw myself adjusting to my future, adjusting accordingly. The first time it happened, it took a longer time. Second time it happened, it took a shorter time. Third time it happened, it took a way shorter time. This time it happened, it was like only like one day. I was just like, oh, you know, but it was not even, I didn't have a sense of loss. I did feel myself because it is like sorrowful, and I'm going to be true to my feelings as much as I can, get it out. But at the same time, I was able to put my mindset in that sense that, okay, this is not punishment for me. What can I learn and how can I help? If you want to be great in the kingdom, learn to be a servant of all. Now is the time that I will be able to help people who I've never even talked to, my neighbors. Disasters bring people out closer together. There's no details that are keeping us apart, and the only thing we can relate on is that we are here now in a disaster that affected us both, right? And in that sense, you can then start building agape-ship, brotherly type of love, and friends, and you can fortify communion again. And in that sense, that's how you get from 1 to 2 to 5, you know, and then if there's 5 people, who knows how many people, 5 plus 5 could equal 3,000, you know. And so that's what I'm saying, like, if you can practice this type of getting to know and in touch with your emotions right now while the disaster is not here, when that time comes, because the way that everything is happening, there's a pattern slowly develop. Us being on the coast here in Houston, the Gulf Coast is right there. I know it's going to be some pretty devastating things, and we've already known how to go through that, you know. And so in that sense, you will be fortified in the true wealth of who you are and what you have truly learned in where you are at the moment, in your comfort, and you feel pleased with yourself. You'll learn the true strength of that by reflecting, how you got to this pleasantness of your life. And that is the second part, which is reflecting, right? And so there's a consistency that comes with this type of exercise, but all it is looking at where you are now and facing the darkened soul mirror of who you are in truth, you know, not disgust, but truth, not hate, but truth, not putting yourself down like, oh, I look ugly, or not. It's truth, which is how, when you look at something, look at it for what it is. Don't let your emotional context hit it, and then think about, is it something that you can fix and strengthen, or something that you have to just accept, or something that you can totally let go of, right? And in that sense, those three types of choices, looking at the in truth of who you are, your criticism will help you to develop a sense of positive observation for yourself and acceptance of yourself, right? And in that sense, what it does is help you to not go into denial of when a disaster happens outside of yourself. That is going to be very devastating. You can face it as a disaster and look at it as, is this something that I can fix? Is this something that I can let go of? Or is it something that I can work on to do better, or just accept as it is, kind of thing, right? And in that sense, you'll have more control of the situation instead of the situation having control of your emotions and looking at everything in chaos. You'll start to be able to organize the chaos that is in front of you, and pretty much align yourself in your attitude and beatitude to the universe, which is of chaos, but it's completely organized, and you'll be in league with it, kind of, even in a disaster. So that reflecting part, and being critical, but not being criticismed like of yourself, right? Negatively, it's just looking at yourself in truth, and that's what it is, or it isn't. And do you have the power to fix it, right? While in comfort right now. And being consistent is probably the main factor and key of doing that. And so I would suggest doing it for like a week, and being consistent. And it doesn't have to be long. It's writing. You just write. You can do it on your phone. You can do it voice to text. But I like writing because it makes me slow down in my texting, and then I really have to focus on the words that I'm thinking in order to really put in truth where I am right now, right? And so do that in truth and reflecting. Do it for like a week about how you feel. If you're happy, if you're sad, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, and then you go from there. If you're happy, what makes you happy, and if it's something outside of yourself, like a material possession like shoes, think about when you didn't have those shoes, the reasons that made you want those shoes. How do you remember how when you got them, how you felt? But remember the journey of trying to get those shoes, right? Because if a disaster comes, like a flood, and those shoes are gone, the only thing left is remembering the journey of how you got those shoes. And if you're not in touch with the strengthening aspects of that journey, that fortified who you were, and focus all of your reward on top of something outside of yourself that was beautiful and made you feel accomplished, but now it's gone, where did that feeling go? So you have to get back in touch with that, because if the shoes are gone, if you can get back in touch with that, you can get something better than shoes, right? It's kind of like that, right? So it's like really focusing and realizing in a virtualizing sense of who you are to strengthen your aspect of attitude. And in that sense, you'll be a lot stronger in a disaster that is going to be devastating. You won't be so devastated. You'll be redeveloped, right? You'll be able to reform yourself faster, and then therefore help everybody else, and then become a beacon of light, a role model, a source of strength for those who are down. And you'll be the opposite, which is going to help to balance out quicker all around you. Your cup will overflow, right? But this takes practice. Living in comfortability, you have attachments, and comfortability is one of those really subtle enemies, right? You take things for granted without even realizing it. So there's no thanks, but there's no devastation if it's gone. But if it's because you have taken for granted that it's going to be there the next day or whenever you pretty much want it. And from the smallest thing, like running water from the faucet, to hot water running from the faucet, to toilet paper on the toilet, to a toilet that flushes so it doesn't stink up, to eating with a fork, even to things like that, and then of course electronics and that communication thing. If there's EMP type of things because of asteroid magnetism coming in, when it comes in, it totally changes atmospheric pressures and brings with it types of radiations, microwaves and sonic waves, that we don't know how it's going to affect electronics. And there's also EMPs, electromagnetic pulses, that if it devastates a grid, the dark ages, we're living in the Stone Age almost. And you think, what I like to think is like, yeah, we're capable of doing that. We're strong enough. But when I used to say that, my mind never was in that place where it's like a blink of an eye. It's not like, oh, we gradually go there. It's one day you had it, and the next day never ever again. What? What are you going to do without air conditioner in the summertime? Like, we take things for granted, but that's the comfortability, right? So it's getting in touch with that. And so it's almost like living and reflecting on yourself in your truth about how the comforts of your life have affected you, and getting back in touch with your treasures in the true wealth of who you are and the strength and fortitude that you have learned, and develop those right now. to prepare yourself better for something that could possibly happen, and it's better to be prepared for something that doesn't happen than for that thing to happen and not be prepared. And we don't think like that in the sense of the emotional thing. We think that being prepared is we bought water, we bought food, extra batteries, stuff like that, things that are outside of yourself. But in the end, those things are not as valuable than the true store of heaven that is in you. Your attitudes about that's going to help you to live and survive in it. So that's where I like to think about storing up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, where floods, hurricanes, hail, lightning, all those stuff does not destroy, and people cannot break in and steal, because your heart, that's your heart of you. Where your heart is, there your treasure will be also, right? And your desire is in your heart. And your heart, your treasure, your desire, that is found in the cave of your true soul nature, in truth, that you have been afraid to enter. When's the last time you got in touch with your emotions? And in America, what you find is there's a lot of broken families, and so they didn't have correct role models. And growing up like that, we weren't taught to emote correctly. And in the sense of emotion, we have completely annihilated the feelings of people who are now of an adult age, a mature age. We are emotionally, I feel, very immature, deformed, not immature, it's deformed, but it's fixable if we're able to do this. And even this type of reflecting, as I said in my other videos, humility must come before honor. And in reflecting in the darkened soul of your mirror in truth, that is humility. That is humility in all honesty. And in that sense, you will find that this honor ability to honor yourself, to really love yourself without being egotistical, and to not think less of yourself, but think of yourself less. Because you let things go that you thought was your true fortification, but that was just the shell of the subroot. And so getting in touch with that mother root, you'll be able to begin to nourish that. And when everything outside of you is gone, nothing outside of you can touch that fortification in you. And in that sense, you'll be able to be a stronger person. And because you're stronger, you're able to help everybody around you. And in that sense, you'll find that you get even stronger. See how it works? And you've also strengthened other people. And so the reflecting part, and do it for a week in consistency and be true to it. And then I would encourage to read back through what you wrote, and see if there is anything that clicks in you, because you have now put your brain in a different type of synapses, right? Of thinking outside of the comfortability. So you make yourself purposefully uncomfortable, kind of, in your reflection, right? And in that sense, you will snap more down into the reality of yourself and those treasures that are in heaven of an eternal nature, the treasures that you have that are stored up inside of you, but because of the comfortability, it was buried, right? In the darkened cave of where your treasure lies. And that's what most people fear to enter. And what you'll find is you'll find your strengths. And not only that, but you'll help to virtualize those strengths. And when you read back and reflect on what you have written throughout the week, if there's any type of eureka moments or words of encouragement that you realized in it, this sense of coaching yourself through it, doing all that stuff, I encourage you to go on YouTube and look for those videos of devastation happening in our country from these natural disasters, and write comments that will help to encourage them, because there's too many, it seems there's too many people who are in the sense of God is condemning you because it's karma, you at least you're alive, and the other one about do not store up for, don't get attached to material possessions because they're worthless. Now you know. They're trying to move them forward too fast. And so you, in that sense of your reflection, can be with them in at least a closer attitude of empathy. And you won't be empathetic. You won't be pathetic in your empathy. You'll just be empathy, right? You can empath on them. And empath is that you are pretty much putting their feet, you're putting their brains, their eyes, their nose, their mouth, their feelings, their sensibilities on you, and you're feeling for them. And you don't even have to, if that's only if you have a eureka moment and feel like doing it. If you don't, there's nothing wrong with that. But get in touch with yourself right now and start preparing for disasters to happen that we may not have even have experienced yet, and we know about, but some things that you don't even know about. They just had a tidal wave of ice in Russia, a tidal wave of ice in Arabia. They're having hail and snow, right? That's a desert, like Antarctica's a desert, but like that's an ice desert. This one was a sand desert, and now it's an ice desert, kind of. It's like, it's crazy. Everything is shifting, And in Arabia they had a river of sand. Yeah. So like you see like these different types of anomalies happening in nature. So it's like now I'm waiting for, I don't know, a tornado of fire, and like you're gonna see things like that, and unprecedented things that probably happened in the past. Nothing new under the sun, but not in our time, and completely forgotten outside of the scope of history. And so, yeah. It's about reflecting, becoming a stronger person, empathizing, getting in touch with your emotions right now, looking around, knowing that you're comfortable, looking what you take for granted, being thankful for those things now that you're aware of them, and imagining your life without those, and then looking at yourself and really realizing what would happen if you didn't have a phone, what would happen if you didn't have a toilet. Like, how would you react? What would happen if none of your cars worked? What would happen? Where would you go if the grocery stores didn't have food? What would you do to do stuff like that, and getting yourself thinking in that aspect and not being stuck in cognitive dissonance? Because the truth will set you free, and sometimes the truth can hurt, but in that hurt, it's budging yourself out of something that you become stuck in. And it's better that you do it you do it for yourself, and let that feeling overflow you. Because if a disaster does happen and it's so devastating, I'm not saying that you're not going to feel shock. You cannot know how it feels until it's happened to you, truly. But at the same time, at least you will be prepared, because those treasures that you now have come in touch with, which is your inner strength, these stores of treasures in heaven where nothing is eternal. It's a virtualization. It's a strength that is of the mind, the willpower, right? You will then be able to activate those a lot faster, and you'll see that you'll be thankful that you did, And at the same time, what I wanted to say is, when it comes to changing your mindset, if you change the way that you look at things, the things that you see change, right? And it's really true. You can do that with a mirror. Just stare at yourself and try and change things. And you can change things, like, everything outside of you happens inside of you. That's why, so if it does happen like that, you can change it inside and look at it in a completely different way. For example, I changed the way that I look at thunder. And when thunder's cracking outside, sometimes it's so loud, it shakes the house. It's scary, right? The dogs, animals, they're crazy. It's raining sometimes, but it's a loud boom sound, and everyone's like, oh, and it's a jolt. I felt that before, but now I've changed the way that I look at it, and instead of thinking that God is angry, because that's where my first thought goes, because, I read the Bible and they're like, God is angry and thunder and lightning. I look at it as God is so powerful. That's how he chuckles And so when I hear it, I'm like, oh, he's chuckling, and then I'll run outside into it and like look up at the sky because I'm not scared of it. You know, there's a fear, there's a terror, but it's not terrifying. It's not petrifying me where I cannot move. It's not instigating me like, should we be worried? It's more like, oh, you know, like there's a lot of power here. It's positive energy, literally, right? Boom, and lightning. And so I changed the way that I looked at it, and now it doesn't affect me anymore. I conquered a fear that people don't look at it as a fear kind of thing. So it helps you change your mind. You change the way that you look at things that you see change, and in that sense, you'll have more control of it. And in that control, you're not going to freak out. You'll have clear judgment. Yeah. People who are freaking out, they're going to go instinct driven, and when you go instinct driven, in an unprecedented situation, you will do something that you've never had to react like that before, and so you're not going to know what to do, and you could easily hurt yourself. You could see that your true nature will come out because the situation doesn't make you; it reveals you. And some people who think that they might be more courageous, you'll find that you will do cowardly things just to save yourself because you want to survive or something. Look at the stories of disasters like the Titanic, people dressing in, they made that rule about women and children, and so people were going through desperate measures and dressing in drag just to try to save it. And I don't blame them for it. People say that they're cowardly. I don't think it's cowardly. I think that they were very desperate to survive. And when you get like that, you know that it's a disaster. That's why. It's like no longer in those people's minds was women and children looked at as a weaker thing. They were all in the same boat and they have equal rights now. That's what that I could see it like that. So I could empathize with them, but at the same time, I would still have to be true to myself and know that if I'm strong, I will have to help things. And if that means sacrificing some things, then I'll sacrifice that for you. It's worth it because you don't know how to do it. That's why you're weaker. So I'll put you over there. Not just saying women and children, but anybody, you know. And in that sense, you'll find that you are integral and you know how to handle yourself in a situation that is unprecedented and you might not be able have ever thought of yourself in. That could very well happen. So, yeah, and it's what I like to think as well to help you is not about faking it till you make it. It's almost that concept. A lot of people know about those words, but what I've always had a foible on about that, a little alarm, is that the word fake has a connotation of not being real, and you need to be real with the treasures, right? Because you want to make sure that it's going to be pure strength. Yeah, there's not going to be a little bit of doubt there. It's not going to be inconceivable for you. You don't want to fake it until you. Faking something is that it's not real, right? Fake is not real, and so you don't want to be a not real until you become a real, hopefully, because you're trying and wanting it. Sometimes it's not going to work in that sense here, but it's along the same parallel, of what it's trying to make you learn. And so what I would like to say is that I am practicing willpower. I'm not faking anything. My willpower is generating that I know of something that I have deep inside of me that I haven't used, I didn't have to use, I never had to face before. But right now, I'm not faking it, I'm willing it to the surface, even though it's not happening, because if that reality does happen, at least my will be trusted in me, kind of thing, yeah? And so, in that sense, you'll store up for yourselves treasures that no disaster outside of you can ever destroy, and in that sense, you'll be fortified and be able to help and survive and get over it faster than most people, but still be in it with everybody, yeah? So just attitudes, getting in touch with your reflections, learning about your emotions, looking around what you take for granted right now, and if there's any eureka moments, reach out a helping hand and add some brotherly love to your encouragement. And encouragement means adding to the heart to strengthen. Yeah, you're getting a piece of heart that they've lost, and you're inspiring it. You're breathing life into them, And in that sense, with the context of brotherly love, you are empathizing with them, not as somebody who is over here safe, so I have a right to say something and think that I know what they're going through, or not over here on a religious stance, condemning people who are already so condemn themselves about what just happened, and over here not being so cold and unempathetic, saying just get over it, move on. It's none of those things will work, even though they're right. They're not righteous. They're right. They're not kind, And right now, it's more than kind you have to do. And to be a leader, you have to understand that leadership nowadays, it's more difficult. It's more difficult than it's ever been because we don't have good role models. And so, in a situation where you need a leader to set a standard and a pace of how everyone can be fortified and encouraged in that. If you don't have that, then everyone's going to be lost, and that's going to be a scary thing because people are going to get desperate. And being a leader nowadays, you can't just be flexible in how you approach the situation. It's become so dramatic and detailed and hard, and people not trusting each other and not enough role models, that you have to learn how to become a contortionist and that's all emotion. That's all emotion, because everyone knows how to do the outside stuff, right? Being prepared and learning how to act and faking it till you make it. But you've not willed it, you've not got in touch with your true strength and your wealth. You've forgotten yourself. And in a situation like that, you need to be truly yourself. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope that encourages you. I hope some of those words just will help you along. Not saying that there's going to be disasters coming. What I'm saying is it's better to be prepared for something that doesn't happen than not be prepared for something that does happen. And it's easy to focus on the external things, to think that you're prepared and fortified, and everyone forgets about their internal, where the true wealth of your strength really resides. So thank you, and God bless. Aloha.